come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. We come from the fire, living in the fire. Go back to the fire, turn the world around. Come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. We come from the water, living in the water. Go back to the water, turn the world around. From the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. We come from the mountain, living on the mountain. Go back to the mountain, turn the world around. Oh, so is life. Ha, ha, so is life. Oh, so is life. Ha, ha, so is life. Do you know who I am? Do you know who you are? See, we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See, we know that clearly. Do you know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do you know who we are? See one another clearly. Do you know who we are? Oh, so is the life. Ha, ha, so is the life. Oh, so is the life. Ha, ha, so is the life. Water make the river, river wash the mountain. Fire make the sunlight, turn the world around. Heart is of the river, girl is of the mountain. Spirit is the sunlight, turn the world around. We are of the spirit, truly of the spirit. Only can the spirit turn the world around. Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See, we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See, we one another clearly. Do we know who we are? Do you know who I am? Do I know who you are? See, we another clearly. Do you know who we are? Ah, so is the light. Ah, so is life. Join with me. Ah, so is the light. Ah, so is life. One more time. Ah, so is the light. Ah, so is the light. Ah, so is the light. Ah, so is the light.
Ooh, I have all of these papers and books and all kinds of stuff up here, and this is so great. I'll tell you more about it later. Good morning. Did you just hear that music? Were you just like inspired and enlivened by it? Because I was. Good morning. All right, well, that's how I like to start my day. It was with a smile and a story for you. I've told this story before, but it's a good one, and it relates to my talk today. So, there's a story of the 6 blind men and the elephant. And they had never touched an elephant before. They didn't know what it was, okay? So the first blind man, he touches the elephant's belly, and he said, "Oh, this is like a wall. It's like a wall." And the next blind man, he comes over and he feels the ear. He said, "Oh, it's like a fan. It's very fan-like, definitely like a fan." And the next man goes over and he feels the tusk. And he said, it's so hard. And then he touches the point. He says, pointy, hard, pointy. It's like a spear. And then the next man, he gets the trunk, and he feels the trunk, and he said, well, it moves like a snake, and it's kind of moving around. And then the next man, he feels the leg. Now, I just want you to know, I have washed an elephant before. I have washed one. Yeah, and the elephant I washed was 13 feet tall, okay? Now I'm 5.5 feet tall. Now imagine 13 feet tall. Okay, so the leg, it's like a leg. So the next blind man said, it's like a tree stump. And the last blind man, he got the tail. He said, well, it's kind of like a rope. And they were all describing the same thing. And they all had their different perspectives, and they were all right. They were all correct. Now, I like this story because the elephant, to me, represents our own interpretations of the one, the infinite one. All these different religions describing their perspective of the one, and they seem different, but yet they're part of the same thing. From each person's own perspective, each religion, each spiritual philosophy is coming at it from a different angle, from a different point of view, and yet it is the same thing. The one thing. And maybe it's not an elephant, some people call it God, source, the infinite one. Whatever you call it, it is the one thing. And today's teaching, we're kicking off the new year with, what do we teach? What do we teach here at Centers for Spiritual Living? Now, don't worry. I know some of you've been here for like 20, 30 years. You're like, oh, God, I've heard this sermon 100 times. I promise you I have information for you too. I promise you. I've got information for everybody. Don't you worry. I have prepared a talk for all of you. I see you. Even online, I see you. All right. So the first point, the thing that we teach from Science of Mind, we teach Science of Mind, right? This is what we teach. This is a book. It's called The Science of Mind. We call it the textbook. It's written by Ernest Holmes, who's the founder of Centers for Spiritual Living. And he's no longer around. He wrote this book in the original one in 1926. But he called Science of Mind a philosophy, a faith, and a way of life. Now, people at Centers for Spiritual Living are still debating, are we a religion? Are we a philosophy? Are we a faith? What are we? It's still a debate, and there is no answer, just so you know. So, whatever it is for you, it is for you, okay? So we do study the science of mind, though. We do this scientific study of the mind. Now, whenever Ernest Holmes wrote this book, the mind, he said, well, there's one mind, it's infinite, it's everywhere present, and it goes in and through all things, and our mind is tapped into that mind. And so it's also a synonym for God. So science of mind, study of God, study of the universe. Maybe you don't use the word God, that's okay. Maybe you're atheist. Maybe you call it the quantum field. Maybe you call it life. Maybe you call it love. Whatever you call it, I want you to know when you came here and you're embarking on this, is it spiritual study? Yes. Is it religious study? I don't know. Study. When you embarked on this study coming into Centers for Spiritual Living, then you have the option to take this on as an experiment. Because science, what all the scientists do is they prove things. That's what scientists do. Well, we want you to prove God, or source, or consciousness, whatever you call it. We want you to prove it. We want you to know that it's here and it's present. So many places are like, hey, come to our place. We want you to come in here. Now leave your brain at the door and we will tell you what to think. We don't do that here. We say, bring your whole self with you. We will present tools for you. You do the experiments. You find out if it works for you or not. That's what we do. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to give you opportunities to connect with your source and for you to realize that it is working in your life. And we want it to work for you. It works for me. I was driving along yesterday, and the song came on, one of my favorite songs, I have to say. It's by Pink. It's called God is a DJ. It goes, if God is a DJ, life is the dance floor, love is the rhythm, and you are the music. And then her next line, she says, you get what you're given, it's all how you use it. Now, I don't know about you, but I think Pink was preaching to me. And I love that song, because if God is a DJ, life is the dance floor. Love is the rhythm, and you are the music. And so we want you to take this thing on. But the first thing that we teach is, I'm going to teach you two things that we teach here at Centers for Spiritual Living. One, God is all there is. And you don't have to use the word God. You can use whatever word it is that is the infinite everything. The Upanishads, they call it Brahman. So in the Upanishads, which is what the Hindus study, they call the Brahman as eternal, conscious, irreducible, infinite, omnipresent, and the spiritual core of the universe of finiteness and change. In the Quran, it says, Allah, the creator, the inventor, the shaper. Whatever is in the heavens and the earth constantly glorifies him. He is the Almighty, the All-Wise. Now, he and she and it, they're all words that we all try and use for us to express what God is. Some of the religions, they're like, don't even use the word God. Like, don't even say it, because every time you say it, it brings up a construct that is limited. Just know that it's beyond that. We call it the omnipotent, the omnipresent, the omniscient. Ernest Holmes said, God is all there is, all possibility, all action. For spirit is the invisible essence and substance of all form. In the Bible, it says the Alpha and the Omega, the beginning and the end, and yet at the same time, the eternal. It has these aspects that's both finite and infinite. It doesn't make sense. I just want you to know, it doesn't make sense. It is a paradox when you're trying to think about it in your brain, because how can something be finite and infinite at the same time? Because finite does not mean infinite, and yet here we are, trying to figure it out in our finite yet infinite bodies. I like to think of us as we're in the ocean, and each and every one of us is like an ice cube in the ocean. Now, is the water of an ice cube different than the water of the ocean? It seems like it's different, but water is water. And so if there's an ice cube in the ocean, it looks like it's seemingly different from water, but it's not different from water. It's a more condensed version of the water itself. And that's like us. We're swimming in the allness of God. We're the condensed version of God. And we get to be here in this place where God is, which is everywhere present all the time. And so therefore, wherever I go, there I am, and there is God, or source, the infinite one. And so if I am here, I have access to all possibilities, all potentialities. Now, this is different from when I was growing up. When I was growing up, I had a religion that my parents chose, but I chose it too, it was Methodist. And while I was going through this, I don't think they directly said this to me, but the feeling I got was that God was outside of me. And that God was also very judgmental, and that God was not only judging me, but there were kind of rules. Like if I broke the rules, then I was damned to hell. And but if I confessed to my sins, then I'd still go to heaven. So when I was a kid, I was like, okay, so I can do all these bad things, and then just before I die, I can just confess to them, and then I'll go to heaven. That's awesome. I love it. But eventually, I kind of got this idea that God was love. So I was getting confused, because if God is love, how would God be condemning? And, no, God is not like a parent, like, oh, I'm condemning you because I know the right way for you. God isn't like that. Love is always seeking our ever-expanding good. And so therefore, I left that church, that belief system, because I was being taught that I would go to hell. And I just didn't believe that love would create a hell. And I still don't. I believe we can create our own hells. We can make the experience of hell by not choosing not to tap into whatever is already inside of us and a part of us. That's a self-choice, but it's not an actual physical location that I'm going to go because I'm damned because of some activity I did. That really God is love. And so that's why I left that teaching. Now, I will say I do follow the teachings of Jesus. Did Jesus ever talk about hell? No, he didn't. Just so you know, there was no talk of hell, no talk of the devil either. That is also a made-up construct. But hey, people like it. They dig it. They can blame stuff that goes crappy in their life on it. I mean, gosh, isn't it convenient? Jesus taught about love. And he even said, oh, all these things that I'm doing, these so-called miracles that you're all enamored of, he's like, hey, you can do all this too. I'm not the chosen one. I am showing you the way that all of us are. This and more you should do as well. That's what he talked about. And then he followed the path of love. What would love do? Regardless of if somebody wants to crucify you, what would love do? What would love do? So I do follow. I love his teachings. I also love the teachings of Buddha. Buddhism doesn't even teach about God. They talk about the Brahman and the Atman. They don't say anything about God. They don't have that concept. But they talk about how do you live a life that not only supports yourself, but supports everybody. How do we live a life that I can feel good about and I can feel content with, and that I am not suffering anymore? And can I do that for myself so I can release any suffering in my life? And can I also do it so it's a benefit to others? That's Buddhism. I follow Buddha too. So there is only one thing. It is in and through all things. Now, what I love is that we do a science. Now, regular scientists, they like to study the physical laws. Well, we like to study the universal principles and laws of spirituality, of God. I think that as scientists explore the physical world, we should explore the laboratory of our own consciousness. We should take our own consciousness on, scientifically recognizing how we are interconnected. I was thinking about ecologists. Now, ecologists, they examine ecosystems. They explore the relationship between various organisms. They look at the environment and the intricate web of creation and connections that sustain life. So what if in our laboratory of consciousness, we engage in the profound exploration of our own interconnected spiritual ecosystem? What if we contemplated, what does the ecosystem of God look like? How am I part of it? How does it respond to me? Ecologists seek to understand how changes in one part of an ecosystem ripple through the entire system. We explore how shifts in our thoughts and our consciousness reverberate through the tapestry of our own lives and the lives of those around us. In ecological studies, scientists recognize that the well-being of one species is intimately tied to the well-being of other species. We study the idea that the well-being of one human being is intimately tied to the well-being of all. Ecologists study feedback loops. They look at symbiotic relationships. They look at the delicate balance that sustains all of life. We go into the laboratory of our own consciousness. And we look at the experiment and the feedback loops of our thoughts, of our emotions, how our prayers and our intentions affect the lives of ourselves and those around us. Now, some of you have taken Beyond Limits, some of you have taken the class, or you've looked at different opportunities, the feedback loops of your thoughts. What are the thoughts that keep repeating over and over and over again? I have some of those thoughts. They were implanted in me by sometimes parents, sometimes teachers, our culture, we hear things on the news, we read them in the magazines, we kind of create this system of beliefs of how the way the world works, and then we believe it, and then we act as if that's the way it is. But what if it's not that way? What if it's for our benefit? What if we started believing that? You know, I had a music teacher, and I was singing a song, and she said I was off key, and then all of a sudden I decided, well, I can't sing. And then I made fun of myself, and I told everybody I couldn't sing, and like people would sing, and I'd say, oh, I'm the one who's always off key, ha, 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 and I'd make jokes about myself, and I created this whole belief system about how terrible of a singer I was. And then one day I was at Sister Spirit Retreat, and I was in a sweat lodge with our hired professional musician that we had for the retreat, and we were singing in a dark lodge. No, you can't see anybody in the sweat lodge, by the way. And we were singing a song, and she was next to me, and I was singing, I was having a great time. And then later on in the sessions, I was facilitating a session, and she started singing, and then she was like, sing with me, Abigail. And I was like, no, I can't sing. Like, what? But in that moment, I realized that I had a belief system that she didn't have. She saw something in me that I hadn't believed. I believed somebody else. And in that moment, I had a breakdown. And then I realized I had a message that I had taken on my whole life, and I had wrapped my whole life around it. A belief system that wasn't serving me. And from that moment, I started practicing singing. And I loved it. But that's what we do. We take these ideas and we think that, oh, that's the way life is. Well, what if it isn't? What if it's better than we can imagine? What if this world is conspiring for our greater good? And what if we're listening to all the things that aren't about that? If God is all there is, it's everywhere present, and it can shift everything. If it's all powerful, almighty, don't you think that it knows how to help us out? Don't you think if you said a prayer or set an intention or created something that its wisdom could tune you into the right and perfect direction for your life? I want you to use life as an experiment. I want you to take this on. So I have a couple of experiments on interconnectedness, so don't worry. I have some simple experiments. If you're here for the first time, I'm going to give you some easy things to do. I want you to just commit to doing one thing. Just one thing. Now, if you've been around for a while, like, you know who you are. You're like, I heard this talk. I heard Kathy Ann say this talk. I heard somebody else say this talk. I've been here for years and years. I have heard this talk. Well, I have some new information for you, okay? All right. Don't you worry. Okay, the first thing, this is the easy experiments. This is experiments on the interconnectedness of life. Do a gratitude journal. A gratitude journal. And why don't you recognize 3 things that you are grateful for that you noticed you were supported by the universe or life that day. 3 things. And I also want you, before you do this, I want you to do a little body scan. Do a little body scan. You can put a little note. Hey, I'm feeling, all right, okay. And then I want you to do this gratitude practice and recognize 3 things. For instance, I'm so grateful for the person who held the door when I was going into the grocery store. I'm so grateful. I'm so grateful for the fact that I lost my wallet and somebody turned it into me completely with everything in it. I'm so grateful for the phone call right when I needed it, when I was feeling down and I was feeling unhappy, and my friend called me up and said, I miss you, I love you. I'm so grateful. 3 things, just 3 things of how the universe or source or the infinite or life is supporting you. 3 things. And then whenever you do that, just take a note how you feel. Did it bring you up? Did it make you feel good about life? Is it affecting your body? The second experiment is an affirmation challenge. So I want you to choose a positive affirmation that's related to being an integral part of the universe, like, I am an integral part of the universe. I am connected to the harmony, the joy, and the power of life. Say it 20 times a day for a week. 20 times a day for a week. Now, here's the deal. These don't work unless you do them, by the way. Just small side note, okay? They don't work unless you do them because you got to actually do the scientific experiment. I want you to prove, God, I want you to prove this stuff. Now, those are the simple exercises. For the advanced class, some of you actually did this already. Silent retreat. Do a silent retreat. You will notice the thoughts that are going around in your brain when you're silent. Do a silent retreat for a couple of days. Allow those thoughts to cleanse from your system and open yourself. Come in with the intention of wanting to be connected, of wanting to feel the interconnectedness of life. Now, several people just came back from a silent retreat. Anybody in the room? Do you feel more connected? Yes, they're shaking their heads just for all you online. Yes, they do. Okay, so it works. It really works. And it may not be easy. Maybe some of you was like, oh, thank God, I finally got some silence. But some other people were like, my brain was going crazy. The more advanced experiment, the synchronicity awareness. So I want you to do is pay attention to synchronicities in your life. For instance, I was going to call my mom because I wanted to connect with her, and whenever I picked up my phone, my mom calls me. I want you to know this happens all the time with my mom. And as a matter of fact, when we're on Zoom calls together, we're like wearing the same color. That's how it works with my mom and I. I also had this time where I said a prayer. For instance, in October, I said a prayer because my uncle had died. I was really unhappy. I was feeling down, and I was doing a practitioner retreat for the Center for Spiritual Living Dallas practitioners. And so here I am on the plane, and I'm like, man, I feel like crap, and I am not happy. I am really sad. And so I was like, okay, God, I need you to show me love. I just need to feel like I'm carried through this because I'm a mess. I'm crying. I'm like supposed to be facilitating. And whenever I said that prayer, I let it go. And I went to the practitioner retreat, and I facilitated the retreat, and I cannot tell you how loving these human beings were. I mean, and I was like so messy. I was so messy, and they were just like loving me and seeing me and appreciating me, and I was so uplifted by this group of people, and they're like, you are our answered prayer, and I'm like, you are my answered prayer, but that's how these things work. It's like, my word for the year is win-win-win. It's like what I need, what I'm seeking is seeking me. And whenever I have this dream or I have this idea and something in me motivates me, it's going to be a benefit for all. It's a benefit for me. It's a benefit for them. There's no win-lose. People try to live in a win-lose world. I'm living in a win-win-win world where everything I do is a benefit both for me and everybody who surrounds me. Win-win-win. So that is the opportunities to put your awareness on synchronicities, heighten that awareness, practice conscious observation, record them down. So that's the advanced course. And if you want to look at some extra work, I encourage you to look at Ken Wilber's work, Integral Philosophy. He also talks about quantum physics. So quantum physics talks about entanglement and non-locality. So the idea is there's a principle in quantum physics that one particle gets entangled with another particle. You have these two particles separated across the globe. You turn one particle, the other one turns. That is entanglement. And this is proof, for those of us who study integral philosophy and also believe in this, that prayer, when I put an intention, actually shifts and changes that person who's across the globe. And not only that, they have this thing called non-locality, which means things can move through time and space without time and space. It doesn't make sense. I know. Quantum physics, it's like there's a wave and a particle, and it's the same thing. They call it light. Both a wave and a particle, how do we know? It's a mystery, but it is a scientific exploration, and it's starting to explain the mysteries of the universe that all the mystics have said. So I encourage you to look at that and understand that non-locality also means that you don't have to be present in the space in order for something to shift in somebody else. So prayer, intentions, actually can cause something instantaneous. And here's the weirder part. Okay, please, for those of you who are new, do not think I'm crazy. But for those of you who have been around for a while, this is the crazy thing that I love. It can affect things in the past and the future because there's no time and space. I'm just saying, right? Just saying. Anyway, this is a scientific venture, but it completely aligns with stuff that kind of blows my mind. So, and if you don't believe that, that's okay. I want you to just try things out. I want you to try things out. So again, God is all there is. The second thing, we are creators in the laboratory of life. Emma Curtis Hopkins said, we are centers of divine operation. Ernest Holmes said, change your thinking, change your life. So I want you to do something really quick, very, very quick experiment. Close your eyes. Now, I want you to notice if you have any thoughts. Just notice them. Now take a moment and notice your physical body. See if you can feel your physical body. Okay, now take a moment and see if you have any emotions. Are there any emotions that you can feel? Okay, now open your eyes. Now I want you to notice the thing of you that observed all of that. That's the infinite aspect of you. Now your thoughts are part of you, right? You could observe them though. They can come, they can go, they're changeable. Your physical body, you can observe your physical body. Your physical body is changing. Your emotions also, you can observe. So there's something there. There's something, what is the consciousness that is there? That's the aspect of you that is the infinite aspect. That is the aspect of you that is always present and will ever be. In my belief system, also when you leave your body. There is an aspect of you that is eternal. And maybe there's that finite aspect, which is your body, but you're also infinite. So you have that seeming paradox, the infinite and the finite. And your consciousness, your conscious awareness is always present wherever you are. It lives with you in life. I know my stepmom says, I always feel like I'm 21, and then I look in the mirror and I'm like, who is that old lady? She's like, I feel the same. I'm still me. What you are will always be the you that you are, and things may change, but it's always the you that you are. So as we look at that, we recognize that we are conscious creators. So we're many versions of the macro. God, creator, is the one source, and we are made with the divine source of creation, creating through us. We get to create. So everything in our lives, we can choose to be a conscious co-creator with the great creator to consciously create things in our lives. Now, how do we do that? We get to choose to do it through our thoughts, words, intention, prayers, actions. As a matter of fact, it works really well if you dream up something and then you give it to God to figure out how to do it. That's the best way to go because it knows how to do the infinite everything. We don't have to figure all that stuff out. We just say, hey, this is what I would love, or better. And the infinite universe goes, okay, I will support you in that. For instance, I know I love this retreat that I do, Sister Spirit, and it's my 18th year doing it. We had this retreat center in California. And as I was in this retreat center, we sold out. And we realized that we would have to leave the retreat center because we were growing. And so what we decided to do is we came together, we did some visioning, and then we decided to put together a list of everything we wanted for a retreat center. Basically, our list was everything our retreat center currently had, plus more bed spaces. So we went over to the retreat center, and we had done all this spiritual work, and we prayed about it, and we were like, okay, well, the right and perfect retreat center will show itself to us. And we told our retreat center, we're sorry, we have to go, we can't, we're at max. We gotta go. We're growing, which is great, and we love you so much, but unfortunately, this is how it is. And the retreat center director said, okay, well, let me come back to you in an hour. And I was like, come back to us? What do you mean? And then she came back in an hour, and she said, well, I really want you to stay. And we're like, well, we would love to stay, but we're growing. She said, well, we are going to build like 3 new buildings. Will you stay if we do that? Yes. Absolutely. Now, did we have in our consciousness that we were going to stay at the retreat center and they were going to build some more buildings for us? No. But that's what ended up happening, is they really wanted to keep us, and so they were very invested in building those buildings and making sure they were done on time for our next year. So that's the way it works. We get to create, the universe supports us, and we let go and surrender to the highest vision, because there is a greater idea of possibility that maybe our brain doesn't see, and that's okay. We see the leg, we see the ear of the elephant, we see the trunk. We might not see the whole picture, but we can imagine the highest and greatest good and claim it for ourselves. So, creating your own reality. Easy experiments. I want you to take a couple of minutes each day and do a positive affirmation body exercise. I want you to bless your body, especially if you're working on health and well-being. Okay? Bless your eyes. How grateful you are for seeing. Bless your nose for the scent that it gets to smell. Your mouth, your lips, your teeth, your tongue for talking, for taste. Your ears for hearing. Your heart for how it beats. Just take a little morning scan of your body and bless it every morning. See how this improves how you feel in your body for the day. The second thing is to visualize your ideal day experiment. Imagine your sights, your sounds. Imagine how it would go if it was the greatest idea of possibility. Now, this is used to be mind-blowing concept. The guy who invented it, and I don't know who it was, I forgot his name, but he took this idea of possibility to the Olympics. He was training Olympic people. He was a trainer, and he had them go through, like if it's a track, he had them walk the track, and then in their mind, they would imagine running the race and doing it at their optimal level. And he had them do it again and again and again with their highest idea possible. And he ended up turning out more Olympic gold medalists, and they were like, what is he doing? He had them imagining it first. And the cool thing is, they've done brain studies, they find out that all the neurons in the brain were still activated in the same way as if they were running the race. So it's amazing what can happen when we utilize what we already have. So imagine your perfect day. All right, advanced people, if you're ready, I want you to look at quantum jumping. Quantum jumping. I love this. So Amit Goswami, he was one of my professors in ministerial school. He's on The Secret. He also has, I think he's got a thing called The Quantum Activist, a movie. So there's a way, you can study him, but think about quantum jumping. Here's the idea. In the quantum universe, or in the quantum idea, there's the idea that we're in one world, And every choice that we make, there's like an aspect of us that breaks off into potentiality and actually follows the other way. So every choice that we make, there's kind of a parallel universe that's going on. Very Star Trek-y, I love it. So goes on to different parallel universes, right? And then so every single choice I've made in my life, multiple options, all happening at the same time, but my consciousness is just aware of this life right now. That's where I'm focused on. And the good news is there may be an aspect of ourselves that maybe followed something to fruition in a way that I haven't yet. So when you do quantum jumping, you go into a meditative state and you tune in to your own self that has, been that worldly successful musician or has done that thing that you want to do but you haven't done yet. And you tune into that aspect of your own self and you ask for wisdom and guidance. You can also do this in the way that Jean Houston does it. I learned this from her. She talks about the entelechy. She says, well, there's an aspect of yourself that has lived for thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of years and lifetimes. She calls it your own entelechy. So it's the you that is I guess we would call it the future you, that is the wisest, most evolved version of you that it can possibly be. And you can meditate, tune in, ask your entelechy to give you wisdom and advice for your highest and greatest evolution of self. That is quantum jumping. It's allowing yourself to be either in the quantum parallel universe or in what we call future. In the quantum world, there's no future and no past, so it's kind of confusing. But is the most evolved version that's happened already that you can tune into and get direct downloads from. So try it out, quantum jumping, or look it up. So the other thing is conscious reality shifting. So basically choose an aspect of your life that you want to consciously shift, and throughout the day, consciously shift your thoughts around that aspect. So ask yourself, what if I assumed the best in this situation? What if this is for my good? What would my best self do? What would my most advanced self do? What would love do? What would my enlightened self do, think, and behave? What would that be? So those are the two advanced ways. You can do that. Take it on. If you're new, don't worry. It's okay. Do the easier things. But I encourage you to take one of these things on, embody it, and test it out, because I want you to prove God. I want to see miracles this year. I want to see wildly amazing good things for each and every one of you, and I want you to live your best life. That's why I'm here, because it's happening for me. I want it to happen for you, okay? Are you in? All right. God is all there is. We are conscious creators in life, okay? Let's pray. And so recognizing and knowing the infinite universe that is here for my highest good, because I am a part of it. I am that divine, well, I wouldn't call it lump, but divine aspect of life, here to express the fullest self that I can possibly express. I recognize and know that the infinite universe is conspiring for my good, and maybe I don't see all the aspects, just like the blind man didn't see all of the elephant, but I know that the wholeness of life is here and is for my good. And as I recognize and know that, I choose to consciously create a life that is beyond what I can imagine, that is better than I can imagine, and I allow life to fully support me in this intention, in this prayer, in this declaration, and I know and claim that I don't have to know how. I recognize and know that there is an aspect of me, an aspect of self, the big S self, the infinite self that knows what it knows, and I'm guided and directed by this place that knows only good for me. And I know and claim that it guides me into win-win-win situations so that each and every person I'm surrounded with is uplifted and shifted just as I am uplifted and shifted by what is going on as my life now. I claim and know and declare that this is a year for powerful magnetic changes that help and assist each and every person so that we can be an expression of life that works for everyone. As I know this truth, I know it right now, I am grateful to surrender into it, to allow it to guide me, to direct me, to show me the coincidences that I am on the right path that works for me. I'm so grateful to acknowledge this truth. I love it, I accept it, I appreciate it, I am it, and so it is. Thank you.